Okay, so today we are going to go over Vocabulaire 2 from Chapitre 1 of your book Bien Dit. So this is the second vocabulary part of your book. It's on page 18 for those of you following along en français, or page 18 if you want to check in your book. So this is going to start a little bit about describing things in your classroom, things that you see around you. So you're going to be able to name all of the items in the classroom or most of the items, and then also describe what is or is not in the classroom, how many objects, how many there are not. And then we're going to talk a little bit in part 2, we're going to talk about classroom commands. So things you can ask in the classroom, things you might hear me or another teacher say. So we're going to start with dans la salle de classe. So on page 18, we have this big green heading, dans la salle de classe, which means in the classroom. So la salle de classe is the classroom. And we're just going to go through and pronounce each of these words really quickly. So if you start up here, you have une télé or une télévision. Most likely en français you say une télé. They shorten it to télé because télévision is a long word. So you can just say une télé. Then if you go down, underneath the télé, on a un lecteur de DVD. Un lecteur de DVD, which is a DVD player. So un lecteur, a player, de DVD, of DVDs. You have next to it or underneath it a map of France, une carte. Une carte is a map. Then up above you have a poster of the Eiffel Tower, and in French you say un poster. Un poster. There's another word for poster, une affiche, which we'll see in class at some point, but un poster is fine. Then next to the poster you have une fenêtre, which is a window. So une fenêtre. Next to the window you have une porte, which is a door, une porte. Next to the door you have a blackboard or a whiteboard or whatever. You say un tableau, un tableau. Un tableau is the board. Then next to the board you have un professeur, which you can shorten to un prof. If it's a female teacher, you can say une prof. Then down here you have une fille. Une fille is a girl. So it's an L-L-E, but it makes a Y sound. Une fille, a girl. You have next to the girl un garçon. So you have that little mark under the C, which makes it go S, which is soft. So un garçon. Above the next garçon, you have un bureau, which is the teacher's desk or a big desk. Un bureau, the desk. Then in the corner, you have the computer, un ordinateur. On the computer desk here, you have une chaise. Une chaise is a chair, une chaise. And then you have un CD or un DVD, so a CD or a DVD. And all of this is sitting on une table. Be careful not to confuse une table, a table, with un tableau. Slightly different sound. Un tableau, une table. So make sure you check the spelling, make sure you know your pronunciation on those. So those are your main words for a lot of the items in your classroom, and then we'll go over classroom supplies at some point too. So to talk about things in the classroom, you're going to see down there in your little blue box some expressions. So you can say the words il y a. If you look in the blue box where it's bolded, it says il y a un poster ou des posters dans la salle de classe. So there is a poster or there are posters in the classroom. And that phrase, il y a, 3 words, il y a, means there is. It also means there are. You don't even have to change anything about that phrase. It means both there is and there are. Il y a. Or when they say it fast, it's il y a. So il y a, and then you say whatever it is you need to say, un poster. Or you'll notice that they changed poster to plural, des, D-E-S. You can change your article right before there, un or une, to des, D-E-S, to make your item plural. And then you'll see that they added an S to posters. The most common thing you do to make something plural in French is just to add an S. So, il y a des posters dans la salle de classe. So you changed un poster, a poster, to des posters, posters, or some posters, dans la salle de classe, which means in the classroom. So, il y a un poster dans la salle de classe. You can say oui, il y a un poster, or oui, il y a des posters, which is fine. Yes, there is a poster. Yes, there are posters. Or if there's no posters, you can say non, il n'y a pas de poster. Il n'y a pas de poster. So, what I wanted to show you here about those two things, you've got il y a, which is there is or there are, and then you've got a slightly different for there is or there are, or there is not, there are not. You have il n'y a pas. Some of you are going to already notice the differences there in that orange box. So, il n'y a pas de poster. But I want to highlight them for you just a little bit. So, if you have this sentence, il y a, there is, or there are in this case, des posters. First of all, some posters, or sometimes you can just assume this means posters altogether. So, plural posters. Il y a des posters. You'll see we changed our un to des, and then we put an s on posters. That means multiple posters. There's many posters. Usually in classrooms there's many. So, il y a, there is or there are, des posters. There are posters. You can add dans la salle de classe if you want. However, in the negative, we actually had il n'y a pas de poster. Il n'y a pas de poster. So you'll see in red here, I've highlighted the differences for you. So, when you make il y a negative, so instead of there is not or there are not, you want the n apostrophe before the y, n apostrophe. That's because y is often treated like a vowel in French. So do an apostrophe. Il n'y a pas. So the second part of our negative here, we have a little bit of a negative sandwich. Il n'y a pas. There's not or there are not. De poster. Our second difference is de poster. So just a quick note here. Notice you've got des turned into de. That's weird. And that's just a weird rule that we'll talk about a little bit more when we get into some more grammar. But these words here, un, which is one or a, une, also one or a, and des, some, when you make them negative, when you say il n'y a pas, when they're in the negative, they change to de. So that's why they do that in the book. That's why they changed it to de. Just wanted you guys to notice that because I know it is a little bit confusing. And in your homework, you might have to write a sentence and you want to know maybe why are we switching from des to de. And we'll talk about that more in depth in class and why we do that. But just a quick note for you, if you're seeing it in your book, why is it going des posters to de posters? That's just the rule. So if you have un, une, or des, and then you make the sentence negative, you say il n'y a pas, there is not, or there are not, you have to say de before your posters or your desks or whatever you're going to put there. Okay? So, the other thing that I wanted to note about, I told you guys just a minute ago that the most common way to make things plural en français is to add an S to the end, just like poster. Just put an S. However, there is one major exception that you're going to have to notice. If your word, your noun, your item, ends in EAU, kind of like the words tableau, blackboard, or bureau, desk, instead of adding an S to the end to make it plural, you add an X. So the plural of tableau is tableau, and at the end you put an X instead of an S for plural. So il y a des tableaux, there are boards, blackboards, whiteboards, would be des tableaux, EAU-X. Same with desks. There are desks in the room. Il y a des bureaux. Des bureaux is ending EAU-X. So watch out for those. That's an exception to the rule. Most of the time you just add an S. But with those, if it ends in EAU, you add an X instead. Okay? Now, one more thing I wanted to show you before we are done with this vocab for the day is at the bottom to ask how many items are in a room. You have the words combien d'élèves il y a dans la classe. So il y a, we know, means there is or there are. Combien de are the words for how many. So normally this word, combien, it means how many. So combien de is how we do it. Combien de. Or if it's before a vowel, we do combien de with an apostrophe. So that's why in the book they have élève. Élève means student. Une élève or un élève means a student. And they say combien d'élèves with a D apostrophe. That's because élève starts with a vowel. So combien d'élèves il y a dans la classe. How many students are in the class? You can say Il y en a, there are of them, and then your number, however many. Il y en a 5. There are 5 of them. So, in English, we say there are 5 of them. In French, the of them part comes a little bit in a different place in the sentence. So in English, we say there are 5 of them. There are 5 of them, just like the example in your book. And we say the 5 comes first, and then the of them part comes second. However, in French, same words, just a slightly different order. We say there are, il y a, and then we add the of them part early. Il y en a, there are of them, and then you say the number. Il y en a 5. So it's a slightly different structure in French. So there are 5 of them, we say in English. In French, il y en, that's the of them, il y en a 5, and that's the number. So il y en a 5. If you want to say how many students, il y en a 30. There are 30 of them. Just a little bit different from English. Same concept, slightly different word order. If you want to say there aren't any of them, it's slightly different. We're going to use that negative that we did again. We're going to put it in pretty much the same place. So we're going to say il n'y en, that's our of them. Il n'y en a, and then after the a, we put pas. That's the end of our sentence. So, il n'y en a pas. Il n'y en a pas. There are none of them. So, of them, there are none, is basically how that works. It's just a slightly different structure from in English, same concept, and we'll go more in depth in class about why that is. But for your homework purposes today, just want to make sure you know how to pronounce this and you know basically what these phrases mean. Alors, so that is the end of our vocab 2, part 1. In the next part of our vocab, we're going to learn about how to pronounce some of these commands and some things that you can ask in class or to say in class. But for today, for our classroom supplies and how to describe the classroom, that's all we got. Au revoir et bonne chance avec votre devoir.